There is a place in western Kentucky called Paradise. You cannot go there. Not because it is abandoned, not because it is some ruin you could walk through, because it is gone. The houses were bulldozed, the post office was closed, the ferry stopped running. And then the ground itself, the land the town stood on, was dug up and hauled away. If you drove today to where Paradise was, in Muhlenberg County on the Green River, you would find a power plant, or the bare ground where a power plant used to be. You would not find the town. There is nothing left to find. A place named Paradise, erased so completely that you cannot even stand where it stood. You would think a town like that would just be forgotten. It was exactly the opposite. Because in 1971, a young songwriter turned Paradise, Kentucky, into one of the most famous vanished places in America. Before any of that, Paradise was just a small place on the river. It began as Stom's Landing, a ferry crossing named for the man who ran it. By 1852, it had a post office and a name that stuck. It was never a city. At its biggest, back in the 1800s, it was maybe 35 houses, a store, a church, and a landing where coal barges tied up on the Green River. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and families stayed for generations. By the middle of the 20th century, it had faded to a handful of households. Quiet, ordinary, the sort of town that never expects to end up in a song. But Paradise sat in the wrong place at the wrong time. Muhlenberg County is coal country, some of the richest soft coal ground in Kentucky, and the seams ran right under the whole region. For 100 years, that coal had meant jobs. In the 1950s, it started to mean something else. Because the country wanted electricity, more of it every single year, and the cheapest way to make electricity was to burn coal, as close as possible to where you dug it out of the ground. In 1959, the Tennessee Valley Authority came to Paradise. The TVA is a federal power company, and it had decided to build one of the largest coal-fired plants in the world right there on the Green River, fed by the coal in the ground around it. The Paradise plant would eventually run 3 enormous units and burn coal by the trainload, day and night, for the next half-century. But to build it, the TVA needed the land, and the land had a town on it. So the TVA did what a federal agency is allowed to do. It bought the town out, and where people would not sell, it took the property by condemnation. One by one, the last families of Paradise were paid for their homes and moved somewhere else. This was not hundreds of people. By the end, it was 5 or 6 families, the last holdouts of a town that had already been fading for decades. But that is its own kind of loss. These were the people who had stayed, who had held on to a place their grandparents settled, and now a power company hundreds of miles from their family's land had decided the town would be a plant instead. In 1967, the post office closed. The ferry made its last crossing. The bulldozers came, and Paradise, Kentucky simply stopped existing. And that was only the town. All around it, something bigger was eating the county. To feed the plant's endless hunger for coal, the Peabody Coal Company strip-mined Muhlenberg on a scale that is hard to even picture. Strip mining does not tunnel. It tears the surface off the earth to reach the coal underneath. And to do that, Peabody brought in a machine the county called the Big Hog. The Big Hog was a stripping shovel the size of a 20-story building. It weighed around 20 million pounds. It arrived in 1962 on 300 railroad cars and took most of a year to bolt together on site. Its bucket could swallow 115 cubic yards of earth in one bite, more than a small house at a time. When it started up, it was the largest shovel on the planet, and for more than 20 years it walked across Muhlenberg County, peeling the land down to the coal and leaving mile after mile of overturned ground behind it. This is where the song comes in. In 1971, a young singer named Prine, whose own family came from Muhlenberg County, released his very first album. On it was a quiet, aching song called Paradise, about this exact place, about going back to the county his people were from and finding it hollowed out, the town gone, the land torn up, the coal company's train hauling it all away. Prine never lived in Paradise. He wrote it, he said, for his father, about a Kentucky that was disappearing. And the song did something the town itself never could. It made Paradise famous. All across the country, people who had never heard of Muhlenberg County learned its name from a 3-minute song about its ruin. The song stung because it named the Peabody Coal Company directly, and it stuck. Peabody was rattled enough that in 1973, the company put out a rebuttal titled Facts versus Prine, protesting that it had been unfairly blamed, and pointing out correctly that it was the TVA, not Peabody, that had actually removed the town. And that part is worth being honest about. 2 different companies did 2 different things here. The Federal Power Company took the town for its plant. The coal company took the county for its coal. The song blurred the line between them. But to the people who had lived there, the difference didn't matter. Between the 2 of them, the town and the land it sat in were both gone. As for the big hog, its ending is the strangest part of the whole story. By the mid-1980s, the coal it had been chasing finally ran out. The machine was too big and too worn to haul to another mine, and too expensive to cut up for scrap. So, in 1986, they simply dug one last pit, drove the largest shovel in the world down into it, and buried it. It is still there. Somewhere under the reclaimed ground of Muhlenberg County lies a 20-story machine, entombed in the earth it spent its whole life tearing open. Everything else went too in the end. The coal plant that started all of it burned its last in 2020, after nearly 60 years. Its cooling towers were imploded in 2022, and the rest was torn down in 2024. A natural gas plant hums on the site now, where the town used to be. So here is what is left of Paradise, Kentucky. Not the houses, not the store or the church or the landing on the river. Not even the plant that replaced them. What is left is the cemetery, up on a hill, deliberately left out of the buyout because you cannot easily move the dead. The people of Paradise were relocated. Their ancestors were allowed to stay. And that is the town now. A graveyard, looking down at the ground where their descendants used to live. The town is gone. The company that took it is gone. The great machine that ate the county is buried in the ground it dug. What is left is a cemetery on a hill, and a song, still playing somewhere right now, about a green and quiet place in western Kentucky that you can never go home to. That is the thing about Paradise. They took the town. They took the coal and the land and the machine that moved it. They can't take the song. This has been Dark History of Western Kentucky. Keep your porch light on.